What are your Rockets going to do before the deadline? What they doing? They say they want to make a move, and they actually have
The
stuff
pieces to
to
do
make a
so.
move.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it just feels like, at least for Houston, because they have so much flexibility, and because all the talk you hear about around the league is that things are kind of stalled a little bit, kind of slowed down. They have the pieces to go out and do things, if they so choose to. Now, obviously, it depends on if they really want to make the playoffs or not. And by all indications, they still want to make the postseason. But as opposed to just playing it cool and letting this phase two ride out, they don't have to go make a big splash before Thursday. But if there's a move around the margins that they can do to get better, as a backup big, between now and the end of the year, obviously more two-way shooting. If those kind of moves are out there, that's what they're going to try to do, because they're 22 or 23 and 26. They're still a game out of the
right.
last playing spot in the
Game out.
Western
Right,
Conference.
right.
Um, after the All-Star break, they got to play the Clippers. They got to play Utah. They got to play Denver, OKC. Like, it gets pretty tough between now and the end of the year. So you need to sharpen your tools, and if you can find a move or two that can just reinforce things and give you guys a jolt, then I think that's what they do.
I mean, would they be more inclined to trade players or picks? You think?
I think, honestly, I think players. If you look at the roster right now, there's a bit of a logjam. Obviously, the one name that you constantly hear in kind of these trade concepts and is Tate, Jayshawn Tate, because he's
Yeah.
kind of fallen down the pecking order. He is a guy that teams still like because of what he can do on both sides of the ball. Still, a versatile defender, can guard 1 through 5, 1 through 4. He's a playmaker, spacing the floor. He's still improving on that. But as far as a team first guy and a chemistry guy and a kind of glue kind of character that the winning teams need to take them over the edge, like just that additional defender, that seventh, eighth guy, he's still a guy that they like. So if there's a move out there that they could send out Tate and bring in a big, or bring in some more two-way shooting, I think that's what they would do. But of course, things are still up in the air at this point. There's still talks. Things will heat up between now and Thursday. But as of right now, that's what they want to do from a conceptual standpoint.
To me, this feels like a little bit more critical than it might seem on the surface, just because the Rockets clearly like have something. So to me, they'd want to get in the playoffs to get these guys some like experience. Like obviously Alperin is like, an anchor. Like who are
Yeah.
some player who on this team who you're like, man, for the purposes of down the line, we want to get them in the playoffs right now.
I think first off is Jabari Smith Jr. I think he's a guy that you look around the league. He's considered one of those tough-nailed, hard-nosed guys who's constantly improving. He's getting a lot of praise around the league just because of his two-way ability, his potential. Obviously, just from a length standpoint, he's gotten better on the glass. He's improving as a three-point shooter. He's someone that needs that, that kind of heightened level of play, to really juice things and really push that development forward. Tari Easton's been out for a while, but he would also be one I put in that category. And then obviously the rookies, Amin Thompson and Cam Whitmore, two guys that, have really might be exceeded expectations a bit in terms of just what they've been able to do from an early standpoint. Obviously with Cam falling to the 20th pick of the draft, now coming in and showing the NBA that he is an offensive threat. Even in his smaller role, he can put points on the board. He's a hell of a floor spacer. Athletic, can crash the boards. Obviously he needs to improve in some of the shot selection and the processing speed, but the tools are all there. So those young guys, I think I call it that, like they call it their core six. Those are the guys that would stand to benefit the most from getting to the postseason. That's kind of why you want to see a team like the Rockets that's right there in the thick of things. Why they should, make a move or two to help those chances.
DA, did you hear that? Did you hear what he just said? I don't
I
know if
did.
you heard, but it sounded like he just said trade Jaylen Green.
I was going to say Marcus. I was waiting for JALE something.
Yeah, nah, he like, yeah, nah.
No,
I didn't hear that name either.
So with Jay, it's something where like beginning of the year or in the past 2 seasons, he was someone that everything was catered towards, right? He was the guy that they championed as the player to get them out of the post James Harden era, right? And if he was going to be a star, it would help accelerate everything else around him. Now, beginning of this season, you bring in Ime, who comes with his own coaching staff, who's coming in from ground zero. There's no preconceived notions. He brings in Fred VanVleet, he brings in Dylan Brooks, brings in Jeff Green, Aaron Holiday, and instantly the culture changes from that point on. Then also you have Alperen Şengün developing into a star rapidly. And I think if you were to be honest with that coaching staff, from a ground zero standpoint, they might not have seen that, from training camp. It's kind of thing where Alperen kind of took it by the horns and said, "Nah, I'm that guy." So,
man, it still don't look like it. Kind of like when he play, it looks like it, but when you look at him, you ain't thinking.
because he's such a laid back guy. He's such a
Yeah.
laid back, chill guy. And so, you have Jaylen who's had to adapt to not being the guy anymore and having to find his niche in the offense. With guys that need the ball. Jabari needs the ball. Alperen needs the ball. Fred, of course, needs the ball. Then you have guys like Dylan that came here to have the ball. It's a bit of a give and go. So you understand kind of from a franchise standpoint, if there was a move out there that could bring them in another star, then it makes sense to even if it cost them a guy like a Jaylen Green, right? Now, on the flip side, he had that big stretch where I think he was averaging close to 29 points a game over the last 6 out of the last 7 games, something like that. And you can kind of see when he's in a rhythm what they can do with him. It's just going to be a matter of they have so many mouths to feed. How do they manage this going forward? And how quickly does Ime want to win at a high level? Like if he's comfortable getting to the first round and losing in a tough 6 games, is that going to change things, or does he want to try and make a first round upset? Depending on what they want to do, that's going to be the direction where they go with Jaylen Green ultimately.
Well, you always have to consider the owner up there.
For sure.
Tillman ain't the most patient person I've ever dealt with in my life. So,
Sure.
I wonder if he's really, pushing. Even if it's not Bridges, I know that was the rumor for a minute.
Yeah.
But I would be, given where they are, I would be surprised if they didn't do something kind of interesting by Thursday, just because I think Tillman would much rather be in the playoffs than not be in the playoffs,
Sure.
and if it means doing a little bit extra on a trade to get a difference maker, a wing that you mentioned, I just can't see him not doing that because he's always been very aggressive when it comes to these types of things.
Yeah. So there is one caveat that recently an injury to Fred VanVleet, the adductor sprain.
Right.
I'm not sure how long it's going to be out. If it's a short-term thing, maybe that does change how they
Fred
approach
does,
Thursday.
and Fred has been getting injured lately.
Yeah. So, but if it's a longer-term thing, I'm not sure if that shifts expectations well, because obviously without Fred, I don't think they're making the playoffs at all. So I think things have to go. And honestly speaking, with their flexibility, the biggest move that they can make is always going to be in the summer, right? Because that's when you have to go from, you can actually sit back and evaluate Ime after a year. Ime hasn't had a group for a year and seen what's worked, what doesn't work, and how can you move forward. Then those guys would have had a year under the belt, extra experience. Now you can actually go out and be some big boys in the market, whereas right now, just because of the injuries with Fred and then Tari's still out, he's missed the last 27 games. If you don't have those two pieces, are you really trying to make the playoffs right now? It really depends on health and as always, DA, you've covered this league for a long time. Someone has to make the first move in the market, and it's going to be a domino effect. So I thought it was going to be Terry Rozier, a couple weeks ago.
I was about to say, you saying Danilo Gallinari don't count? Come on, man.